And they're like, okay, yeah, that sounds cool, but how can you help? And we're like, so we graduated just yet, and this is all the ideas that they have. But that was always a turn off for them. They were like, you just graduated, you don't really seem to have any experience. So like, what can you do for us that the others wouldn't? And to convince people of that was our greatest struggle. But we eventually found the right people, and that's what I learned through the process. There's going to be a million rejections, but there's somebody out there who's going to be mentally aligned with your idea, and you just have to keep moving forward till you find that person.
So today we are joined by Yutika Ghiya. She is a graduate in business from Northeastern University and the founder of Menova, an online learning platform aiming to feed curiosity, which also happens to be one of her passions, and which is learning for fun. The intention of this podcast is that we want to spread awareness around education and the problems faced by its various stakeholders, and eventually create a learning resource for said stakeholders. So, welcome on this podcast, Yutika. We are so happy to have you. Yeah, we're so happy to have you here with us. And without much ado, we'll just get straight into the first question. So, founding a startup is a daunting task at any stage of life, let alone right out of college. So, what prompted you to start Menova? What's the story behind it?
Of course. I wanna say something before I get to the story. Many people believe that founding a startup right after college is very risky. It's a very crazy, bold move, but I feel like it's one of the safest times to do so. I know that even if I fail tomorrow, and hopefully that won't happen, but let's say if that were to happen, I can still be at my parents' house. I know I'm still gonna get my teen time ka roti, right? And I'm gonna be more or less safe. My existence is going to be safe, and I have that safety net, thankfully. And I would say this is the best time to start, because again, if you fail, you still have so much time to pick up yourself, get back into the game, and move forward again. Anyway, coming to the story. So as you said, I studied in the US, and I noticed something that was not really prevalent here, which is the strong focus on extracurricular activities and learning. So I was part of the styling fashion club, at Northeastern University, and I was head of styling there. Akshan, my co-founder, was part of the music club. I was also part of the dance club, and all of this was so heavily stressed upon while I was there. It made such a big difference when you put all of that stuff on your resume, when you spoke to people for jobs, during interviews. It really made a big impression. And if you did not have that component, it was looked down upon. And that's when I realized that something like that is so not prevalent here in India, and that's a problem, right? And I came back to India last year during March when the lockdown was just going to happen, and I came across an ad of masterclass, and it was Natalie Portman teaches acting, I believe, and my eyes lit up. I thought it was so cool because it was such an easy way to explore something new, to learn something new that actually excites you. And I did a quick research, and I was like, okay, is there something similar to that here in India? And I did not really find anything. And that was it for me. That was my eureka moment. I was like, I have to create something that gives people the opportunity to learn outside of their college, outside of their school, job, whatever it is that they're doing during their 9 to 5, and turbocharge, so to say, their 5 to 9, right? In a very easy and time effective manner. And that's what inspired me. That's what inspired Akshan, and it's been a journey since, but here we are.
Awesome. So I'm just going to ask for a couple more details because it seems like a very interesting story. So in starting and launching Menova, what was the biggest struggle you faced?
The biggest struggle we faced was getting on board instructors. So we decided that we will not put in any money to develop a platform, to create any sort of branding, to do anything at all until we knew that we could land instructors. Because we do not want to put in money and then go onto the world and come back disappointed and just to know that, oh, sare paise dob gaye, right? And so we went out to people saying, hey, this is the idea we have. This is what you can do. We want you to come on board and teach your craft to millions of people out there. This is the impact you can make. Are you on board or not? And they're like, okay, yeah, that sounds cool, but how can you help? And we're like, so we graduated just yet, and this is all the ideas that they have. But that was always a turn off for them. They were like, you just graduated, you don't really seem to have any experience. So like, what can you do for us that the others wouldn't? And to convince people of that was our greatest struggle. But we eventually found the right people, and that's what I learned through the process. There's going to be a million rejections, but there's somebody out there who's going to be mentally aligned with your idea, and you just have to keep moving forward till you find that person.
That's something that I feel like a lot of people can relate to. Mm-hmm. So going back, the problem that you wanted to solve with Menova was the fact that people don't really spend enough time on their 5 to 9 as opposed to their 9 to 5, as you put it. So what does the current offering solve? Does it solve the problem in its entirety or in part? And if it does solve the problem you mentioned in part, how do you plan to expand and solve the rest of the issues?
Got it. So there are a couple of problems that our current offering solves for. So one is awareness. Are there places that I could go to learn? And for people in tier 1, the answer could be yes, the answer could be no, depending on what it is they want to learn. Tier 2, tier 3, the more you go down, the answer becomes no, more and more so. So that is something we're solving for. Another thing that we're solving for is affordability. So
can I stop you there for 1 second? Could you elaborate on what tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 is for people who don't have the context?
Of course. So the way we see it, metropolitan cities like Bombay, Delhi fall under tier 1 cities. There's a lot more people, a lot more opportunities, a lot more things going on. Tier 2 cities is kind of smaller cities where I would say there's less availability of these kind of classes or these kind of even people to teach. And tier 3 cities is where all of this stuff is even less available. So that's how I would classify it, at least in our context. And so, as I was saying, awareness and accessibility is what we're solving for. And then the other thing that we're solving for is affordability. So let's look at a mixology course. If somebody wanted to learn mixology, there's something at a professional grade where you would have to pay double-digit thousands, maybe. And then there's us, our mixology lab, which is priced at just $5.99. So that immediately makes things a lot more affordable and accessible to anybody who's interested in learning this. And so these are the kind of problems that we're solving for. Another thing that we're solving for is the quality of instructors. So like I mentioned, people may or may not find the right kind of people to learn from, especially as crafts get more niche. And so this is something that we really wanted to make sure that we get on board the best of the people who are at the top of their game so that people are learning from the finest minds. The thing that our current offering is not really solving for, and I don't think that's as much of a problem as it's a process thing, the way I see learning happening, especially in leisure learning or when you're learning passions, when you're cultivating your hobbies, is you imbibe everything. You're learning what the craft is like. Second is when you want to showcase it. So let me give you an example. I used to do dance as a kid. I've done dance for many, many years. And every summer and winter, there was a workshop which resulted in a stage show. And during those times, all of my hard work across the year was pegged at that. I was like, okay, I want to work so hard so that when I get on stage and I showcase my dancing skills to everybody, I want to be the best. I want to be the best that I possibly could be. And the showcasing part is so important because when you're learning something, you want to show it off. You want to tell the world that, hey, this is this cool thing that now I know how to do. And that's not something that we have just yet. We do want to build out that as well. It's called Project Darshana. We're currently working on that, creating a roadmap to create that. And that includes components like exhibitions, showcases, competitions, live sessions, where people can come on board and showcase everything that they've learned from the lab.
So coming to this conclusion would have been a process of a lot of trial and error and pulling from your own life and your own experiences to figure out what you can solve. And like anything, there must have been a lot of different iterations that you would have tried out. So what are some of the assumptions or the iterations that you're testing at the current moment, and any key insights that you have gained from your previous experiments to expand?
Some of the assumptions that we had, I'm gonna tell you a fun one, was even when we started out, we thought, okay, maybe only people from tier 1 cities would be interested in this kind of an offering because they have that kind of exposure and that kind of thinking, they're developing that kind of thinking where they start to realize, okay, indulging in your passions, developing your hobbies, all of this is really important. And people from tier 2 cities and people from tier 3 cities are still slightly more academically oriented or more job oriented, and so that's where they would want to spend most of their money. However, we were completely wrong. Initially we ran very open-ended ads, and when I say open-ended, I mean in terms of targeting, and we saw a lot of interest coming from tier 2 cities as well as tier 1, and that was a really big eye-opener for us because now we see that there's interest everywhere. It's just about handing people the right thing at the right time and making it a good fit for them, and people would want to invest in it. That was one thing that we realized pretty early enough in our journey, thankfully. Another thing that we realized was, so we deliberately made our mixology lab pretty short. It stands at about 35 minutes with 5-minute chapters. And the idea behind that was that everybody knows that people's attention spans are reducing so fast, and things are getting smaller and smaller and more bite sized, as they call it. 5-minute YouTube videos have gone down to 30-second reels and all that stuff. So we made a conscious decision to have this go at a very fast pace. But while our communication lab was at about 3 hours, with 15-ish minutes for each chapter. And that has received more attention than mixology for its duration. And that's when we realized that if it's quality content, if you're providing the right kind of learning, actionable insights from the right kind of person, people want to invest their time because they know they're going to get out that much more quality learning out of it. So those were our two biggest learnings so far.
Yeah, and I'm sure as you expand, there'll be more things that come in.
Definitely, learning every day.
Yeah. So coming back to the fact how you got introduced to Menova as an idea, what sparked it was the fact that you were introduced to a similar concept in the American market with Masterclass. Now, obviously, there are a few big players such as Masterclass in this space. Did they intimidate you, and what unique insights do you have that other people might have missed?
Of course. So Masterclass was definitely an inspiration for us. So Masterclass was not really the one who intimidated us. However, now the space in India is getting slightly more competitive and their pockets are getting deeper as we speak. So of course, when a situation like that arises, we tend to break a sweat, and that's what happened with us as well. However, we believe in our vision, and we believe that the way we are going about it is different, and people who genuinely want to learn will see the difference. And that's what has been keeping us going on our good days, on our bad days. That's the vision that we keep coming back to always. But in terms of insights, I would say that the way other people are going about it is very focused on the celebrities that they have, almost making it seem like it's filmfare and not learning. And I would say that it starts with the celebrity instructors and not ends there. And we have made a very conscious choice to shed a light on what somebody would get out of taking our labs, rather than, oh, here's the instructor and so just buy it, please. We don't want to take an approach, and we're consciously communicating that through all of our posts, all of our ads, all of our everything that we say and do.
So the whole concept of Menova tends to tether around this idea of learning and how you can continue learning at every stage in your life. But people most often associate learning with, say, people who are in school or colleges and whatever. But we also see this trend of, like, often depending on the situation the student is in, or maybe just a lack of willingness, that people and students especially whose sort of full-time job is learning don't tend to move out beyond the curriculum. So why do you think it's important to do things outside of a formal education system?
Okay, I'm gonna give a very personal example. So I mentioned before that I've been dancing for many, many years, and that has helped me so much to become the kind of person that I am today. The biggest gift that it gave me was the gift of confidence. Another thing that I learned was that you can always get up again. Fall down 7, get up 8. That's what I learned truly, because when I was learning a routine, when I was not getting some steps, and when I was feeling like, this is not happening, I knew that if I did it just one more time, I would probably get it. And the other thing that it gave me was the gift of creativity. So when you are dancing, when you're listening to the beats, when you're doing movements according to music, it gives you this creative spark, which after a point it becomes easy to take that out of the dance studio and apply it to the rest of the things that you're doing in your life. And so the list is really endless, right? Depending on what you're doing, there's a lot of things you could draw out of it. If somebody is very into sports, they have a spirit of very healthy competition, and that's going to help them a lot no matter what they're doing. So these kind of qualities, soft skills that it gives you is very important, and that's something that you can only, I would say, learn unless you can only learn if you're following something outside of your 9 to 5.
And with school going students and stuff, they spend a lot of their time doing active learning in the education setting itself, so whether that be their school or their college or whatever. So should the onus be on the educational institute itself, or do you have any thoughts as to why many school and college going students don't indulge in learning beyond the curriculum?
So I think people don't indulge in learning beyond the curriculum is because schools or colleges just don't make a strong enough case for it. You know that you need to learn biology, for example, because you're going to get tested on it, you're going to get your marks, those marks are going to determine your career. And so there is a case made for learning biology. But there is no such thing, or hardly such thing, for passions and hobbies. And that's the biggest problem. I would say that it would be great if schools and colleges do take the onus, because that kind of approach would work the best, considering how trained Indian students are to follow the authorities, at least when it comes to testing and like grading and that kind of stuff. However, I believe that the situation we're in, it is much easier for the student itself to take onus of its own learning. So the idea is that hopefully they can set targets for themselves. Okay, this is something that I want to learn because I want to get this. I want to learn X because I want to get Y out of it. And that would then motivate them to learn outside of whatever curriculum it is that they're following.
And as a student who recently graduated from school, I was fortunate enough to go to a school where we actually did a lot of that. But it also you could see the difference between people who took it up on their own and people who took it up from the school's end. So there's a truth in both scenarios, self-motivated learning and through the educational institute. But you got into extracurriculars beyond just the education system a lot more when you were at Northeastern, if I'm not wrong. So how do you think your experience as a student in a foreign university factored into the way you created Menova?
So one is something that we've already touched upon as of now, which is the focus that was placed on learning outside of your degree. And like I said, that makes things a lot easier for students to take up then, because if the authorities place focus, the students are more likely to do it. And something similar happened to me in college. However, for me, I had taken up dance way before, and that's what propelled me to do more in college. And I think I've completely digressed from the question. So in terms of how my education helped me shape Menova to become the way it is that I was fortunate enough to meet a lot of people from different backgrounds when I was in the US, because the US, as you know, sees a lot of people coming from across the globe to their colleges. And that really helped me broaden my perspective on the way people learn, on the way people imbibe knowledge, how people work with learning. So is it a very hands-on approach? Is it a very, okay, we're going to cram for an exam kind of approach? Is it very collaborative? All of that kind of stuff is something that we've taken into account while building Menova and structuring our labs.
And is there, if you could go back to school now, is there anything that you wish you had been taught to better succeed in that collegiate setting with so many different type of people, or even in your ventures beyond college?
Of course, this is going to be a pretty generic answer, but I definitely do believe in it. I wish people were taught to handle rejection better. So, like I said, we were rejected so many times when we were approaching our first set of instructors, and each time felt like the heaviest hit to our heart. But we knew that there was no other option but to get back up and go out there if we wanted to create Menova and if we wanted to bring it to life. So when somebody gets bad marks in school, the way they're penalized is I don't think it's correct at all. I would almost say that it's not human. There's a much better way of going about it, which is rooted in encouragement, in positive reinforcement. And I wish that comes to light more than it did in my time.
And that's a really good segue into our sort of main question that we ask all our guests, which is, what are some flaws in our current education system? And how do you think we could solve them?
I would say that the way teaching is done now is very limited to the textbook, very dry, unimaginative. And I kind of get it, because the idea and the agenda is just to become, okay, we need to finish the syllabus so that they're ready for their exam at the end of the week, at the end of the month, at the end of the year, and then that's it, we're done. They're off to the next grade, and we're done. And that has caused teachers and teaching to really lose quality. Good teaching and good teachers are ones that bring the subject to life and take you on a journey. I feel like teaching is no different than performance arts, and I don't really see that happening anymore.
And how do you think that edtech can possibly move to become a solution for these challenges? Because obviously with Menova, you're bringing together instructors who are really passionate about their craft. So,
of course. So people who have experience in honing their craft are the best teachers, because they know exactly what it has taken for them to get to that stage, and then they could hopefully help you get to that stage as well. They also know exactly how to help you do that, right? So what is the right thing to say? What is the right kind of activities that you should do? And that's what edtech would really help with. It can help bring the best teachers on board and scale them for the masses and make them accessible and affordable. And that's the beauty of edtech, and that's what we're doing here at Menova, and that's what I hope edtech moves towards always.
And that's all the questions I had for you today. If you have any closing thoughts that you'd like to share, now's the time.
Of course, yeah. My only closing thoughts would be that do not depend on your college authorities, on your school authorities to determine what you study, how you study, when you should study. We're in an age where you can decide what you want to do and the level that you want to do it at. So if you have anything that you want to learn, now is the moment, go learn it. Start on YouTube and go elsewhere. Come on, Menova, wherever it is that you go, but do it.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. It was a lovely conversation, and we're so glad to have you.
Of course, thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure.